Little girl asked, "Why is she here?" Millionaire Dad's incredible journey of hidden love reveal on a sun-drenched afternoon in Maplewood. The scent of sweet peach pies hung in the air like an old-town secret. Joe, a burly mechanic with grease-stained hands and a warm smile, was working on a truck in his garage. His spirited daughter Lily, with bright blonde hair and an infectious laugh, frolicked nearby, tossing a baseball high in the sky. The townsfolk knew Joe well, a man who lived day to day, embodying the beauty of simple living. But everything changed when his invention in ingenious home repair tools suddenly made him a millionaire, transforming the quaint mechanic's life from struggle to luxury. Though their circumstances had changed, Joe and Lily remained grounded, finding joy in backyard barbecues and late-night stargazing. One fateful day at the community center's annual fair, the delicate balance of their lives would tip. As vibrant lights twinkled around them, Lily's innocent eyes caught sight of a strikingly glamorous woman. Dressed in an elegant flowing dress that swayed with every step, she was magnetic, drawing curious glances from a gathering crowd. "Daddy, why is she here?" Lily's question rang through the air like a bell, crisp and unfiltered. Joe's heart tightened. The woman, as it turned out, was Marissa, a distant relative he had never met, one whose life had taken a harsher turn than his own. Suddenly, the glitter of wealth felt heavy, burdened by echoes of family secrets hidden under layers of pride and shame. As whispers spread through Maplewood, the gaze of judgment from his friends grew sharper. Was he to welcome Marissa into their lives? The fear of disrupting their modest family values made him hesitate. Joe grappled with the profound implications of his transformed status, torn between loyalty and acceptance in a community bound by tradition. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. At a neighborhood picnic, emotions boiled over amid laughter and music. Joe felt the weight of his choices pressing down on him like a summer sun. The air crackled with tension as townsfolk discussed his newfound wealth and Marissa's presence. Would he prioritize the deep-rooted family ties he cherished, or would he bend under the fear of judgment? Lily, her wide eyes reflecting both innocence and understanding, watched him navigate these stormy waters. The love they shared was a treasure. How could he protect it? Just as clarity began to break through the clouds of confusion, the heartbreaking question loomed: could he redefine what wealth truly meant? It was a suspenseful moment, leaving readers wondering whether he would embrace his past and present or lose what mattered most in the relentless pursuit of acceptance. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue across Maplewood, Joe felt the weight of the town's eyes upon him. Everyone paused, conversations halted, as they awaited his next move. Marissa stood at the edge of the gathering, her expression a mix of hope and vulnerability. The crowd's whispers ebbed and flowed like the waves of an anxious sea, creating a tension that gnawed at Joe's heart. Lily nudged him, her small hand grasping his finger. "Dad, can we talk to her?" Her voice was soft yet insistent, a plea wrapped in childlike curiosity. In that moment, Joe saw not just his daughter, but a reflection of his own innocence, an innocence untainted by the complexities of adult choices. With a deep breath, he nodded. "All right, let us go," he said, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions churning inside him. As they approached Marissa, Joe couldn't shake the notion that this encounter could change the course of their lives. "Hi, I'm Joe," he said, extending a hand toward Marissa, who hesitated for a moment before accepting it. Her cool fingers felt like a lifeline, tethering him to a part of his past he was unsure how to face. "I'm Marissa," she replied, her voice softer than he expected. I didn't mean to intrude. I just wanted to reach out to connect." Lily's eyes lit up. "Why haven't you been around before? You're pretty." It was an innocent observation, yet it sliced through the tension, prompting a small smile from Marissa. "Thank you, sweetheart," Marissa chuckled lightly. Life took me on a different path, but I'm here now. Joe felt the warmth of Lily's affection as she gazed up at Marissa, completely unarmed by the complications that had plagued him. In that exchange, he realized the simplicity children possess, a gift that often dims in the bustle of adulthood. The crowd watched, their expressions shifting from skepticism to intrigue. Joe felt a sudden rush of boldness. He wanted to bridge the gap between his two worlds, the life of muddy hands and quiet living, and this new reality pulling at him from the other side. Marissa, would you like to join us? We're just about to have some pie, Joe offered, summoning all his courage. The warm glow of the evening was fading fast, just like the illusion of control he thought he had. Marissa hesitated, her eyes darting toward the onlookers, then back at him. Really? I would love that. The invitation felt monumental, like sowing a seed of connection amidst the fraying threads of judgment. Joe felt the cautious steps of acceptance beginning to take root, yet the old fears lingered in the back of his mind. As they walked together toward the picnic table, Lily looked up at her dad. It feels nice, Dad. We're like a family. Her words struck at the heart of Joe's turmoil. What did family mean to him now? And how could he ensure their bond remained unshakable in this shifting landscape? Just as they settled onto a bench, laughter and chatter resumed around them. Yet Joe could still feel the weight of the unspoken questions and quiet disapproval that lingered in the air. It would be a long journey ahead, and he was terrified of the shadows his past could cast on their future. And in that moment, just as the last slice of pie was offered to Marissa, a voice emerged from the crowd. Joe! Are you sure about this? It was Tom, his oldest friend, the one who had been by his side through thick and thin. The crowd fell silent again, and Joe's heart raced. What would his friend say next? Would this moment shatter the fragile bridge he had just begun to build? Joe looked around, not just at the faces etched with concern, but at Lily, whose bright eyes twinkled with hope. Now, as the tremors of uncertainty coursed through him, Joe had to decide, was he ready to face not just the person Marissa had become, but the expectations and judgment that came with unveiling his hidden love? A choice loomed before him, a choice that could either heal their family ties or fracture them even further. The moment of truth was upon him, and he could feel the world leaning in, waiting for his answer. Joe's heart drummed in his chest, echoing the tension that blanketed the gathering. Tom's words hung like an unexpected chill, gnawing at the warmth that had recently begun to blossom between him and Marissa. The crowd, now more of a living organism than a collection of faces, breathed as one, waiting to see how he would respond. Tom, Joe began, but his voice faltered. Part of him wanted to reassure his friend, to defend his choice, but the words tangled in his throat. Marissa shifted slightly, her blue eyes glistening in the fading light. I know this is unusual, she said, her voice trembling lightly. But I promise I'm not here to create chaos. I just wanted to see Joe again. A murmur traveled through the crowd, punctuated by a few raised eyebrows. Joe sensed the scrutiny pressing down on their conversation like a weight. He let out a slow breath, steeling himself. Tom, this is important to me, Joe finally said, meeting his friend's gaze. I need to explore what this connection means, for Lily's sake as much as mine. Lily looked up at her dad, her small face radiant with hope. It's okay, Dad. I like her. See? Joe added, a hint of a smile forming. Even Lily believes in second chances. The weight of responsibility shifted slightly. He thought of the late nights he'd spent wondering what might have been if he hadn't lost contact with Marissa. The laughter they once shared, the dreams that had been suspended after life pulled them apart. Could he reclaim even a fraction of that now? All right then, Tom began, his voice softening, but still cautious. But you know how people talk, Joe. Just be careful. This town can be judgmental? Joe interrupted. Yeah, I get that. But sometimes, we need to risk the criticism to find our truth. Don't we? Marissa looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and apprehension. The crowd had relaxed a little, their whispers now more curious than accusatory. So, you want some pie? Joe asked, attempting to shift the mood. I hear it's the best in Maplewood. Marissa's eyes danced with a faint smile. I think I do like that. But I can't eat it all on my own. With that, Joe felt a flicker of excitement. The heaviness still lingered, but the connection was deepening. As they shared slices of pie, laughter filled the air. Lily jumped in with questions about Marissa's life, her innocent curiosity painting a beautiful moment amidst the chaos. Joe watched the two of them interact, marveling at how quickly authentic connections could form through the eyes of a child. But just as Joe began to relax, a voice cut through the laughter again. Why is she here? It was another familiar, disapproving voice from the crowd, this time belonging to Sarah, a longtime town resident. Joe felt his throat tighten. He glanced between Marissa and Lily, unsure if he should brace them for the fallout of the question. His heart sank, knowing this moment could either solidify their bond or tear it apart. Who cares why she's here? Lily piped up, her fists on her hips with the defiance of a child who knew what was right. She's nice. You should be kind, not mean. The crowd collectively took a breath, and for a fleeting moment, all eyes were on the small girl who dared to stand up for something pure. Joe's heart swelled with pride. Marissa turned her gaze to Joe, her eyes shimmering with a mixture of hope and fear. What do you want, Joe? How do you want to move forward from here? In that instant, Joe recognized the weight of his next words. They would carve a future either based on fear or love. His decision hung in the air, a palpable moment suspended in time. He opened his mouth to speak, but uncertainty churned within him. What if this was where the dream he'd just kindled flickered out again? And as each pair of eyes remained fixed on him, the stakes felt higher than ever. The question loomed, were they ready to face not just the disapproval of the town but also the uncharted territory of their rekindled relationship? Joe felt the weight of the moment crash down, every heartbeat amplifying the tension. He looked at Marissa, then at Lily's wide, trusting eyes. She believed in this, believed in change and possibility. Could he do the same? Maybe we start fresh, Joe said, his voice steadier than he expected. I don't want to hide who I am or who I care about. Life is too short for that. The words hung in the air, heavy yet liberating, and he felt a shift around him. Tom raised an eyebrow, surprisingly nodding in agreement. Okay then. If this is what you want, I support you. Just know you'll face a lot. Life isn't about avoiding challenges, Joe replied, the conviction growing inside him. I want to stand up for what makes me happy, and right now, that's Marissa and Lily. Marissa's lips parted slightly in shock, and for a moment, Joe thought he saw the shadows of doubt lift from her expression. The corners of her mouth turned upward, reflecting a spark of hope. Thank you, she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. I want to be part of your lives again. I don't expect it to be easy, but a rustle passed through the crowd, and Joe could see the shifting expressions, confusion, curiosity, and even, begrudgingly, a flicker of acceptance. But then Sarah's voice reached out again, sharp and unyielding. You can't just waltz back into his life like nothing happened. There are kids involved now, Joe. Lily's stubborn little face contorted into a frown. But she's nice. And she makes my dad happy. Joe placed a protective hand on Lily's shoulder, feeling the warmth radiate between them. We're all just trying to find our way back to each other, he said firmly. This is about more than just us, it's about all of us. His words struck a chord, a ripple of consideration in the crowd. The murmurs ebbed, and for the first time since the confrontation had begun, an air of introspection settled among them. Marissa's hand found Joe's, a gentle squeeze that spoke volumes. There was a sense of solidarity in that simple gesture, a flash of understanding passing silently between them. Maybe we can figure it out together? Marissa offered, her smile radiant and warming. Together, Joe echoed, glancing once more at Lily, who beamed with a mix of pride and excitement. But just as the atmosphere shifted to one of cautious optimism, Sarah stepped forward, her expression determined. This isn't a fairy tale. Reality is harsh, and you both need to be prepared for the fallout. People won't change their minds easily. Joe's heart sank. He knew she was right. It wouldn't be simple, and the townsfolk would voice their opinions. In a small community, judgment was swift and oftentimes unrelenting. But he could feel the flicker of courage building inside him, feeding on the warmth of this small family they were beginning to forge. "Maybe not," he replied, locking eyes with Sarah, "but Lily's words show us how kindness can pave the way. What I want matters, and I'm prepared to fight for it." Staring back, Sarah softened, her rigid demeanor faltering, just for a moment. The tension shifted slightly, and Joe seized the chance to encourage the crowd. "If we can see beyond what once was and open our hearts to something new, then that's a step forward." As applause began to ripple through the spectators, uncertainty still lingered. Joe felt a connection solidifying with Marissa and Lily, but a shadow loomed large in the back of his mind. What if the community turned their backs on them? What if some saw love as a mistake? Just then, a distant voice from behind shouted, "Joe! You really think this is gonna work?" The crowd turned, and the moment of tension was brought back to life. "Are you ready to confront not just the past, but the truth of your future?" The words struck Joe hard, igniting doubt, hope, and determination in equal measure. Was he ready for the potential upheaval? And was their fragile harmony strong enough to withstand whatever storm lay ahead? Joe's heart raced as he faced the crowd, the weight of their eyes pressing against him like a storm brewing. Marissa's hand was still in his, grounding him amidst the chaos. "I can't promise it will be easy," he called out, his voice firm yet vulnerable. "But I can promise that I will try. For Lily, for Marissa, for us." The murmurs grew louder, anxious whispers dancing among the crowd. Discontent simmered beneath the surface, even as some nodded in tentative agreement. But Sarah, her arms crossed tight, was not swayed. "Trying isn't enough, Joe. You can't just wish it to be better. There are real lives at stake." Lily, with her wide, innocent eyes, turned to Joe. "But Dad! We can show everyone how happy we are. We can make them see." Her voice was a melody of hope, pulling at his heartstrings. He knelt down so he could meet her gaze. "I know, Lily. I want that too. But we can't control how people feel. We can only control how we act, how we love." Marissa squeezed his hand tighter, her expression a mixture of pride and fear. "We face this together, Joe. No matter how hard it gets." Joe nodded, grateful for her support. But in the back of his mind, lingering doubts wrapped around his thoughts. Could they really stand tall against the storm brewing in the community? The distant voice cut through his contemplation again. "This is a small town, Joe. They won't accept you." A man from the back shouted, his tone dripping with skepticism. "And what about your past? What about Lily's future?" Joe's chest tightened as the questions festered. He had left behind a lot of hurt and division, yet here he was, trying to build anew. "I know my past isn't perfect," he said, taking a step forward. "But I'm not the same person I was. I'm trying to change, to create a better environment for my daughter." The crowd was silent for a moment, absorbing his words. Joe took a deep breath, allowing vulnerability to seep into the cracks of his carefully constructed facade. "I chose Marissa because I believe in love, in second chances. And I believe that everyone deserves that, even in a town like ours." A ripple of whispers ran through the crowd. Some seemed moved, while others scowled at the audacity of his hope. Joe felt the tension thickening. "We can be better than our past," he added, his voice rising in urgency. "We can show our children what love looks like: unconditional, brave, and true, no matter who it comes from." As he glanced at Marissa and Lily, a flicker of encouragement sparked behind their eyes. And suddenly he felt both terrified and exhilarated. The risk was high, but so was the possibility of joy. Sarah, still solid in her stance, took a step forward. "What makes you think any of this will change anything?" "Because love," Joe replied, "is the most powerful force there is. It can break down walls. It can unite. If we really want a community that values understanding and acceptance, we have to start somewhere." Before Sarah could respond, an elderly woman spoke up from the back, her voice cracking with age yet ringing with clarity. "I once believed love couldn't conquer all. I thought it was just for the young. Her gaze shifted to Marissa. But here you are, proving me wrong. This sentiment broke the ice, sparking murmurs of agreement and nods of recognition around the gathered townsfolk. Joe inhaled deeply, sensing a small shift in the atmosphere. Could a breakthrough be on the horizon? But as the crowd began to soften, a chilling gust blew through him as he thought of the backlash still awaiting. Will your love be enough to stand against the storm that's coming? A voice from the shadows questioned. Joe's heart sank again. The battle was far from over. What awaited them beyond this wooden gathering? Would they weather the storm together, or would the winds drive them apart? With uncertainty swirling, Joe faced his newfound family and the crowd. There is so much more at stake than just us. Are we ready to fight for the love we believe can prevail? The question hung in the air, heavy with promise and peril. Joe held his breath, the weight of his question lingering in the cool air. The murmurs that had sparked a moment of unity now returned, louder and choppier like restless waves crashing against the shore. Lily's face lit with hope, and Marissa's eyes sparkled like stars caught in a twilight sky. But then there was Sarah, bracing, still firm in her disbelief. We are ready to fight for love, Joe, Marissa said, her voice barely above a whisper but strong enough for everyone to hear. But not if we don't face what's ahead together. I want to fight, Joe replied, feeling that familiar rush of determination, the kind that surged through him when he first became a father. But we need to understand the fear, the anger. It can't just be our love on the line, it has to be everyone's. We can't ask for acceptance without giving something back. At that moment, the crowd quieted. The gravity of Joe's words hung like an unbroken thread, waiting for a spark to ignite it. What do you suggest? Sarah snapped, cutting through the silence. More empty promises? Sarah, an older man, spoke up, his voice trembling but steady. Maybe it's time we listen. Maybe it's time we allow love another chance. Listen? Sarah echoed sharply, her fiery stance softening just a bit. We've listened enough over the years. This town has its traditions. The traditions that kept us apart? Joe interjected, his heart pounding. We're not monsters, Sarah. We all want safety, love, a better future for our kids. But those traditions don't leave space for change. Joe felt sweat trickle down his back as he looked around at the crowd, faces flickering in uncertainty and doubt. It was painfully clear that they felt trapped. Bound by their own fears and histories, they struggled with the idea of letting someone in. And if you find that change is impossible? Sarah challenged, raising her chin defiantly. Will you just walk away, leaving us? Leaving Lily? No, Joe said firmly. I want to walk away, not from my daughter, not from any of you. But we must all take a leap. To bridge the gap, we need commitment and understanding, not division. Just then, a small voice piped up from the crowd. But why is she here? A little girl pointed at Marissa, her innocence shining through despite the tension. Is she your girlfriend? Gasps rippled through the adults. Joe felt his heart twitch at the simplicity of the question. There was no judgment in the child's voice, no heavy history. Just curious wonder, like a fresh canvas waiting to be painted. Because she loves me, Joe answered, kneeling to meet the girl's gaze. And because our love can help us all see that we can build something beautiful together. Like how colors come together to make a painting, different strokes, different hues, and all. The crowd shifted, some softening their expressions while others traded uneasy glances. Joe felt the tide slowly begin to change. The little girl didn't understand the complexities, but her pure inquiry began to peel back the layers of adult doubts. But Sarah wasn't done. And what happens when the painting isn't perfect? When it doesn't fit some mold we've created? Joe swallowed hard. Then we keep trying. Together. Because it's not about perfection, Sarah. It's about having hope. Hope for our families, for our future. A rustle spread through the crowd, people starting to look at one another, eyes blinking between skepticism and a glimmer of understanding. The atmosphere felt heavier, but not with hostility. More like a weight being lifted, allowing room for new ideas to fight through. We can't pretend these things don't matter, an older woman spoke, her voice quavering yet thoughtful. But we also can't ignore love. Love is where we begin. Just as something shifted within the crowd, a distant rumble suddenly echoed through the air, dark clouds rolling in. A reminder of the storm brewing outside, of the battle that awaited them all. Will it be enough? Joe whispered to himself, feeling a knot tighten in his stomach. Could they redefine their town and their relationships in the face of it? Or would the storm that lurked over their heads create chaos where there might be beauty? As the first drops of rain began to fall, Joe knew their fight had only just begun. Was love truly capable of weathering the storm? He turned back to Marissa and Lily, their faces lit with hope despite the darkness encroaching around them. But could that light draw others in, or would doubt extinguish it before they could even start? In the somber silence, he vowed to do everything he could to prove that love, indeed, could conquer all. But was everyone ready to join him in that fight? Thunder rolled across the sky, a rolling wave of sound that mirrored the tension hanging in the air. Joe could feel every heartbeat pulse with the uncertainty of what lay ahead, like the ticking of a clock counting down to a moment that could change everything. The crowd, once an avalanche of doubt, now shifted subtly. Some faces softened, others etched deeper lines of worry, but all were drawn to the flicker of light that Joe and Marissa had ignited. "ISNT love a reason too, Sarah?" Lily's voice broke through the tension like sunlight breaking through clouds. Her youthful optimism illuminated the dread thickening around them. "If we all really loved each other, why can't we just try?" Joe looked at his daughter, her eyes filled with the innocence of a child who had yet to learn the weight of societal expectations. It warmed his heart and gave him a push, yet he knew there were deeper reasons for fear. "Love, Lily, is just the beginning. We have to act for it to matter, show that we're willing to stand up when things get tough." "But why do things always have to be tough?" a man muttered from the back, shaking his head as if the very thought of hardship angered him. "Why can't we just live our lives without all this confrontation?" "It's too much to ask." Joe's chest tightened. He understood this sentiment all too well. A comfortable life often promised less pain, but it also led to stagnation. Because change is scary, but it's not impossible. You have all lived with fear, just like I have. What if we decide to let that fear guide us into being better together? A deep silence settled over the crowd, heavy like the impending storm. The raindrops began to fall more steadily, dotting the dirt with dark splashes. Anxiety flared in the air, a physical sense of chaos waiting to be unleashed. Joe felt the impending pressure from outside creep within, and he sensed he needed to act with urgency. "Look," he said, raising his voice just enough to cut through the whispers, "we either fight for love and make it worth something, or we hold on to our fears and break apart. The storm is here, literal and emotional. Let us decide how we want to face it." Marissa stepped closer to him, a hand reaching out gently to rest on his arm. "We can be a family, a community, rooted together by love," she said, her voice unwavering. "But love requires action, understanding, and compassion for all. We can be different and still stay connected." "What about our kids?" a voice called out tremulously. "What will this change mean for them?" Joe took a deep breath, feeling the ground beneath him shift. "It means teaching them to love without conditions, to be brave in the face of adversity, and to understand that kindness can heal wounds that have festered for too long. It's about giving them a solid foundation." The crowd stirred again, a mix of fear and curiosity flickering across their expressions. Some were starting to nod or murmur in agreement, slowly engaging with what he was proposing. The rain poured heavier now, drenching their gathering, blurring the edges of their heartfelt confrontation. But rather than feeling washed away, the rain felt like a cleanse, knocking down walls that had seemed insurmountable moments ago. Joe's heart raced as he realized they might just be inching closer to a collective awakening. "Step into the storm with us," Joe urged. "Let this be a moment of truth, of connection. We can't shelter ourselves from what is real anymore." While some hesitated, others stepped forward, moving closer, ready to hear more, ready to give love and community a chance. He glanced at Marissa and Lily again, feeling a swell of hope begin to rise even amidst the tempest. But as Joe looked around, he caught sight of Sarah's rigid figure still frozen in doubt. What if our fears come true? She challenged, her voice shaking. Then we face it together, he replied, conviction flooding his words. But we can't let our fears keep us from our love. And so, standing in the rain, Joe found himself teetering on the edge of something monumental. But as thunder rumbled in the distance, the question echoed in his mind: would they leap together, or would he have to confront this storm alone? Joe's heart thundered in his chest, his own pulse matching the storm above. The gathering began to shift. Something indescribable hung in the air, a mix of anticipation and dread. He glanced at Marissa, her face wet from the relentless downpour but brightened by her unwavering spirit. She mirrored his determination, and together, they radiated an energy that started to break through the fog of fear bathing the crowd. Then, with hesitant steps, a few more people moved towards Joe. It was like watching flowers bloom amidst the raindrops. "I'm in," a middle-aged woman named Clara said, her voice barely audible over the rain, but it carried through the winds like a beacon. "I've been scared for years. Scared to speak up, afraid of judgment. But love means speaking the truth, doesn't it?" Joe felt a knot in his throat loosen. "Yes, it does, Clara," he affirmed, his own voice steadying along with her resolve. "And from truth springs connection. We are all feeling the weight of the world, but we don't have to bear it alone." As Clara spoke, more voices joined in, a symphony of shared fears and dreams began to accumulate. "I want to believe we can change things," shouted a teenage boy, his voice breaking as the hope within him surfaced. "Why can't we trust and love each other? Because trust has been broken too many times," shouted Sarah, still standing at the back, arms crossed tightly. But even she appeared to waver, her fear battling against the flicker of longing in her eyes. "Sarah," Joe called out, his voice firm yet soft, drawing everyone's attention to her. "What would it take for you to trust again?" She hesitated, her brow furrowed, as if her heart was debating with itself. It would take time," she finally admitted, each word dropping like stones into water, creating ripples of silence. "Time is nothing without action," Joe countered gently, not wanting to push too hard but needing to provoke thought. He shifted slightly, making sure he had everyone's gaze, and continued, "Let us put love into action. Let us show our children that risks are worth taking." With the raindrops pouring down, Joe felt connected, not only to the land but to the people standing before him, many now embracing vulnerability. All those voices once shrouded by fear began to mingle and fuse into a unified declaration, a community rising from the storm. Marissa moved closer to Joe, their intertwined fingers a testament to their solidarity. "We can do this. We can unravel our truths if we stand together," she added, her words a soft, nurturing balm amidst the tension. Suddenly, a loud crack of thunder interrupted them, sending shivers through the thrumming crowd. A scatter of gasps erupted, but Joe held his ground, the urgency in this moment wrapping around him like a warm embrace. "I get it. The loud uncertainty can be terrifying," he acknowledged. "But facing our fears as a united front will drown out the chaos. We can fight the storm, but first, we need to fight for each other." In that instant, Joe noticed Sarah's expression shift. The tightly wound lines of her face began to soften, her guarded posture loosened just a fraction. She seemed to be searching for a way to let go of her own burdens. Maybe we could start with small acts of kindness," she suggested tentatively, disbelief mixing with the desire to believe. "Whatever it takes to build trust again." Joe felt a spark of hope blossom in his chest. "Yes!" he exclaimed, his enthusiasm radiating between them. "A day at a time, let us strengthen our bonds. We can form our own resolutions, not just for us but for every child we owe so much." People started nodding, murmurs of agreement flowed through the crowd like the rain washing away their hesitations. But as they strode forward, poised to take that first step together, Joe felt a dark shadow creeping back, a reminder that the storm was not merely outside. It lived in unspoken words and long-held grudges. What if it all goes wrong? What if we lose everything? Someone whispered from the back, and the question hung over them, a cloud of doubt that couldn't be easily swept away. Joe looked at Marissa, then back to the crowd, sensing the energy shift again. The fear retreated to the background, but it was all too clear that to move forward would take more than mere hope. It would take bravery, raw and unfiltered. With the storm raging on, he knew they had begun writing a new chapter together. Yet, as the first ray of sun cut through the clouds, he sensed that their hardest moments were still to come. Would their resolve hold strong? In that moment, that uncertainty loomed larger than the storm itself. As the final echoes of thunder resonated above, Joe took a deep breath. He could feel the energy in the crowd shift between fear and hope, fragile yet brimming with possibility. The rain continued to pour, but a few brave souls ventured closer to him, curiosity and courage battling against their inner doubts. "Maybe it's okay to be scared," Clara spoke up, breaking the silence. "But we can't let that fear paralyze us. We have to do something." Her eyes sparkled with newfound conviction, each word imbued with warmth that spread like wildfire. Joe nodded, acknowledging the spark igniting in others. He turned to the small group that had gathered, ordinary people united in the middle of a storm, and he saw not just individuals, but potential a tapestry of stories woven together, each thread representing a different struggle. "Clara's right," he continued, feeling the weight lift from his shoulders. "Let us take a pledge right here, right now. To speak our truths. To support each other, even when it gets tough. Can we do that? Can we promise to look out for one another?" A collective murmur rippled through the crowd, building momentum, igniting hope. "Yes," they said, voices gathering strength like the pull of gravity. Marissa squeezed Joe's hand, her smile infectious. "What if we start with a community gathering? An event to share our stories, our struggles, and our victories?" Their idea began to flourish. Joe caught glimpses of understanding and determination on the faces surrounding him. Even Sarah, still hesitant, appeared to ponder the notion, shoulders relaxing as she wiped the rain from her brow. "Yeah, I'd come to that," chimed in a wiry man with a shaggy beard, a glint of excitement lighting up his eyes. "Let us make it fun, music, food, and real talk. Imagine seeing our neighbors, those we've avoided, come together." "Absolutely," Marissa replied, her voice filled with enthusiasm. "Let us create something beautiful out of all this chaos. We can include everyone, tap into that love we've been missing." As each person spoke, their ideas began to weave a vibrant tapestry of hope. Joe felt like a channel of energy, and he let their aspirations buoy him higher. They aimed to create a community celebration, an event where stories could be shared, where hearts could open like flowers in the spring sun. But just as visions of laughter and connection danced through his mind, he noticed a shadow overshadowing their plans. As quickly as it had buoyed their spirits, doubt crept back in like a chilling breeze. "What if no one shows up?" came a voice from the back, barely above a whisper yet loud enough to puncture the high hopes. "What if we're just fooling ourselves?" The wave of disappointment rolled through the group. Joe saw Sarah's unsure face contort in frustration. He could feel the momentum slip away, like sand through fingers. "Let us take that leap together," Joe urged, his heart pounding in his chest again, fighting against the fear that threatened to resurface. "What if we do it anyway? What if we show up for each other, even if just a few of us?" Suddenly, Marissa raised her chin, met Joe's eyes, and then turned to the crowd. "We could make this a challenge to face fear with love. The number of people doesn't matter as long as we're honest, right?" A deep silence extended as their words settled in, and Joe could see eyes brightening, some faces nodding slowly in agreement. This was about connection, about honesty, and recognizing that it was okay to not have everything figured out. "Let us do it together!" Clara shouted suddenly, her fierce determination breaking through the fog. "I will help organize the event. Count me in." With a gust of renewed energy, others began to speak up, offering their talents, ideas, and support. Laughter filtered through the crowd, mingling with raindrops and brightening their spirits. But just as Joe felt the spark of hope reignite, a chilling gust of wind swept through, sending shivers down their spines. The storm raged on, unrelenting, but beneath it, he could feel the soft stirrings of a new resolve. Yet in the back of his mind, A haunting thought lingered. Did they truly have what it took to confront the storms within? The complexities, the dark corners of their hearts that had kept them apart for so long? Joe took a deep breath, determination settling in as he prepared to face whatever came next. Together, they were starting to build something powerful, but the question remained, would it survive? The night was still young, and Jill's voice echoed in his thoughts. Maybe you just need to jump, and with that, as the storm began to ease just a little, they took their first steps toward not only weathering a tempest but of unleashing the power of vulnerability. Were they ready to carry this newfound courage beyond the safety of a gathering? As the rain lightened to a gentle drizzle, Joe felt an unfamiliar sense of clarity wash over him like the fresh air that followed a storm. All around him, faces were no longer shadowed by doubt, they were illuminated with a cautious optimism. This was more than just an idea now, it was a movement slowly gaining momentum, and he could feel their unity growing stronger by the second. Lily's hand was still firmly clutching his, her little fingers wrapping tightly around his larger ones, grounding him in this moment. She looked up at him, her wide, innocent eyes reflecting hope and excitement. "Can we really do this, Dad?" she asked, a nervous flutter in her voice. "We can," Joe replied, his heart swelling with resolve. "We're not just fighting for ourselves, we're fighting for everyone around us. For our friends, our neighbors, for our town." Marissa leaned in, her voice low but filled with excitement. "Let us make it a moment everyone remembers. A starting line, where we put love into action." Her enthusiasm was magnetic, drawing even those still tentative into the warmth of her vision. As the drizzle slowed to a light mist, the conversation began to swell, ideas bouncing back and forth, creating a sense of community that had previously felt unattainable. Joe encouraged everyone to share their individual stories in snippets, each revealing pieces of lives lived out loud. There was laughter, tears, and a recognition of shared struggles that resonated deeply, cordially blending their fates. "I have a garden. We could all contribute something to a potluck," Clara suggested, her eyes alight with newfound inspiration. "I can cook. I can bring drinks." Someone else chimed in, the laughter now echoing around them, resonating with a sense of camaraderie that seemed to ripple like waves through the clouds overhead. And suddenly Sarah, the very voice of doubt, stepped forward. "I will help, too," she offered hesitantly, casting aside residual concerns. "But we'll need a location. A safe space to make it feel inviting." Joe felt a rush of warmth in his chest. "We can ask the community center. They usually welcome gatherings like this." The ripples of enthusiasm rolled across their group, and it felt as though the very fabric of Maplewood began to shift. In that moment, the sense of vulnerability transformed into strength. It was evident they were finally branching out, ready to confront the storms ahead. Joe gazed around at Lily, her bright eyes shining with pride, at Marissa's radiant smile reflecting the spirit of rebirth around them, at the people he had once feared would judge him, now standing side by side with shared hopes. The rain had slowed to a misty curtain, creating a surreal ambience. "Let us mark this moment," he said, his voice steady and filled with purpose. "Let us promise to support one another, to listen, and to act with kindness. To remember that love can conquer anything. Even our worst fears." "Yes," echoed the chorus, a testament to the power of unity blooming in real time. As the evening sky began to lighten, Joe felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. Here they were, their uncertainty transformed into something tangible, something that pulsed with the rhythm of heartfelt connection. They could be the change they longed for, the beacon of transformation for a community steeped in tradition. And then, just as Joe began to feel their aspirations rising into something grand, a voice from the edges of the crowd called out reluctantly, holding the tension thrumming beneath it. "But what if it still doesn't work out?" Joe turned, eyeing the speaker, concern painted on their face. "What if it doesn't?" he replied, his tone gentle yet unwavering. "We try again together. And if it fails, we find another way. Love isn't linear. It's messy, it's complicated. But it's what makes us human." Silence lingered, the question profoundly settling in their hearts. Then someone in the back chimed in again, "Nobody's perfect, life isn't perfect. But together, we can be better than we were alone. A wave of nods cascaded through the crowd, and Joe couldn't help but smile. Yes. This was it. They'd started a conversation that mattered, a drive toward connection and compassion that would resonate beyond this evening. As the first traces of sunset painted the sky orange and lavender, Joe took a deep breath and raised his voice. Let us make our gathering not just an event, but a movement. A chance for us to hear one another, grow alongside each other, and embrace our complexities. I'm ready to reboot some of these family ties, and that includes all of you. He could feel the energy cracking like static on an electric line, sparking to life as people began to share their ideas, their dreams, their fears. Joe stood hand in hand with Marissa, their fingers intertwined like vines climbing toward the sky, and Lily, radiating that beautiful, innocent wisdom, beneath the storm's waning light. They were ready to embrace the future together. The question remained, not about whether the world outside would accept them, but whether they could continue to foster love under their own roof together. As laughter broke out with the wavering autumn sun setting behind them, Joe knew this was just the beginning. Buckling through their storms would lead to radiant rainbows forged by resilience, laughter, family, and love. He took a step forward, lifting their collective hopes into the brightening evening sky. Let us show everyone in Maplewood what we can do starting now. The notion of family, community, and acceptance wrapped around them, creating an armor of love to help shield against the words that might come. But Joe felt a warm certainty whatever storm awaited, they would be ready to face it, together. And with that held against the backdrop of an inevitable journey, the first step towards transforming a burden into an opportunity, toward aligning their past with their present and forging the future they all deserved had officially begun. Now was the time, they were more than ready. Even in the face of uncertainty, they stood together powerful, vibrant, a connection that could conquer the darkest of clouds. And in that moment, their laughter could be heard dancing among the last traces of rain, echoing in the hearts of all of Maplewood. This was a new day, a new chapter. A lesson in love, acceptance, and above all the audacity to believe that every storm surely passes, especially when faced together. Join the movement, join the moment. If you felt the warmth of this journey, you need to subscribe now to keep up with more heartfelt stories. Don't let the magic slip away. Leave a like now to fuel the algorithm fire. I want to hear your reactions, so comment below with your thoughts. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to believe in the power of love and community. Let us keep this momentum going, because together is where the real change happens. Don't wait not even one more second to share this message. Be the light.